Start. Thank you, Stone. Before I open the hearing for the Barnstable Conservation Commission, I would like to ask Angela to do a roll call for the quorum purpose.
Abadili.
Present.
Foster.
Present.
Hearn.
Present.
Koshulik.
Present.
Lee.
Present?
Tangney present. Pete Sampu.
Not yet.
Not yet.
All right. Administrator Ed Hoops
Present.
and Staff Member Kim Kavanaugh.
Present.
We have a quorum, Chair. It's all
Thank you.
yours.
Acting under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and or Chapter 237 of the Code of Town of Barnstable, the Barnstable Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, May 6, 2025, at 6:30 p.m. for the applications of Sea Wolf Holding LLC, Town of Barnstable, DBW. This hearing is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government's Access Channel. The plans and application are on file and may be reviewed by scheduling appointments by sending email requests to @hoop at 230 South Street, Hyannis. This hearing is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government's Access Channel. In accordance with the Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, please let the chair know if anyone is recording this hearing. Hearing none, this evening's hearing agenda is posted on the town's website. On the agenda next to each application is the amount owed to the Town of Barnstable for the cost of advertisements. Please send your checks to the Conservation Division at 230 South Street before the hearing. Remote participation. The Conservation Commission's public hearing will be held by remote participation as a result of an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed up by the governor on March 28, 2025, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Remote public access to this hearing shall be provided in the following manner. 1, the hearing will be televised via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via Town of Barnstable's Government's Access Channel. 2, the real-time public comment can be addressed to the Conservation Commission utilizing the Zoom link 816-2215-1023 or use the toll-free phone number 888-475-4499 as shown on the agenda. Third, the public can also email the comments to edwin.hoops@town.barnstable.ma.us at least 8 hours prior to the hearing. Tonight, we only have one LDA, Sea Wolf Holding LLC, to demolish existing dwelling and rebuild existing deck. The new dwelling is beyond conservation's jurisdictions at 807 Seaview Avenue, Austerville, as shown on the Assessors Map 113, Parcel 004. John?
Hey, Tom, excuse me, Tom, could you notice that Sampu is here now while you were reading?
Okay.
He's here.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
here.
I
Okay.
got him. I noted it. Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. John?
Good evening, John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting, representing the applicants. Project is on Seaview Ave. I will bring up the plan for you. Family purchased the property about a year ago. Recently started some renovation work to the house and quickly determined that when they started diving into walls that there were significant portions that were not on foundations and columns, beams that weren't standing on columns, and it was a structural disaster. And so they have opted to reconstruct the dwelling instead. We do have a coastal bank. The existing dwelling's probably about 90 something feet away. They have opted to just pull the house back so that it's outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. But there is a existing deck located seaward of that. It's about 74 feet at the closest point to the top of the bank. There is a natural 50+ foot buffer, kind of a meadowy community out there. Edge of lawn is 65-ish feet from the bank. We did call for a little silt fence along that current edge of lawn to contain any activities out there. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. Question from the commissioner.
I have a question.
Yes, Bill?
Just to clarify, John, did you just say that the 50-foot buffer is intact other than that like boardwalk that I'm seeing?
That's yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question from the commissioner? None? Channel 18, any public comment on this one?
Seeing none.
None? Could I have a motion to approve this project as a negative determination?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Hearn,
Aye.
Koshulik,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
and Tangney, aye. That's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, John. We have one NOI, Town of Barnstable, DBW, to improve stormwater treatment by retrofitting the existing drainage systems with underground infiltration chamber and a leaching basins armoring an existing gravel parking area on the roadway shoulder with structured pervious gravel paving and planting native brushes to establish a section of the roadway shoulder as a no parking area on Old Shore Road contoured. Is Amber here?
Amber is not. I'm Greg Avinium with Kleinfelder. We're the consultant for it.
Okay. Go ahead.
Let me just share my screen here. Hi, everyone. Like I said, my name is Greg Avinium. I'm the civil engineer for the project. This is on Old Shore Road coming up from the boat ramp at Ropes Beach. And the project itself is funded through a Natural Resource Conservation Service grant and is being overseen by the Cape Cod Conservation District. We're at about 90% design at this stage. The purpose of the project is for water quality improvements. Cotuit Bay is considered a critical area, and we're looking to reduce bacteria loading. There is a existing stormwater system in the road here. It generally fills up with sediment because there's no pretreatment, and it requires frequent maintenance. So we're kind of adapting things a little bit. It is considered a limited project in the eyes of the Wetland Protection Act just because it's in the roadway. But the project itself consists of retrofitting the existing system to become pretreatment for a new system, and then installing a new leaching manhole in the street, adding a couple of new catch basins and underground leaching chambers. They're basically going to look like either a storm tech system or a Coltech system. There's various manufacturers, but what actually gets used will be determined by the contractor. So as you see on my screen here, this is the boat ramp to the right of the screen. The road comes around. These in the center here are the existing leaching basins. So we're going to convert these two catch basins to have a higher outflow. So these would still capture all of the sediments going in. The higher runout would go out into a new leaching chamber that would be a bit more protected just by the nature of it. And then up here, a little bit higher up, above the 100-year storm elevation, we have two catch basins to catch the runoff that's coming down the road and send it to two different chamber systems for infiltration. That's only part of the problem. The other half, I guess, is there's a lot of erosion, obviously, because it's such a steep roadway. And so on the side of the road, we're proposing down here where cars generally park for accessing the boat ramp and Ropes Beach. Right now it's just dirt and it erodes obviously a lot in the summer and through a lot of use and heavy rain events. Converting that to structured gravel parking to promote infiltration of the area itself, prevent it from being compacted, and also withstand erosive flows. And then the last piece of the puzzle, up here, this is a little bit further up the hill. Right now it's marked as no parking, but obviously there is parking every now and then, and that doesn't do any favors for the ground cover or for the erosive capabilities. So we're proposing to reseed that or install some plantings to promote or to discourage vehicles from tracking in there. And then for the first season of growth, we would also have construction fencing around it just to give it a chance to establish, so it can't be run over. In this area, there's land subject to coastal storm flowage, so there's a floodplain here, and there is also a salt marsh that was delineated last year. We show work within the 100-foot buffer. We show work within the 50-foot buffer. One thing that's a little bit deceptive here, though, is we show this whole area as being part of the limit disturbance all the way down to basically the top of the boat ramp. That's not necessarily needed for construction. We have it down that far because it allows the erosion controls to be embedded into the ground. If we put erosion controls on just the pavement, say, it's very likely that if you get a rain event, it's just going to run right underneath it. So we're a little bit closer than we ordinarily would be. No other portion of the project is within about 60 feet of the salt marsh. So within the 50-foot buffer, we have about 4,000 square feet of impact. Within the 100-foot buffer, about 5,400. And then within the land subject to coastal storm flowage, which is the FEMA flood zone, about 6,000 square feet. I'm happy to walk through. I guess I have a little profile of what everything looks like here. If I go down one more page. This is a little bit more of a simplified version. The beach again is to the right. There's the 3 new mini systems that are installed in Old Shore Road. And then down here, you can see it in profile.
Thank you, Greg. Any question from the commissioner?
Just a quick one.
John?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So I was looking to raise my hand. That grassy area, I've lived near there and I've been there frequently. Probably most of the commissioners have. That grassy area becomes a parking lot. Did you consider fencing that off permanently so that it prevents parking there? And I know parking is an issue for the folks, but that area is pretty important from a protection point of view.
So you're talking about this area up here?
Yes, I am.
So I think it turns into sort of an enforcement issue. And then we've discussed it with the DPW. The plan was to put temporary construction fencing around it for establishment. I don't think that there would be any opposition to putting something more permanent. The only issue would be it becomes how close can you put it to the edge of the roadway, because if you're going to be plowing, potentially there's always the chance that you're going to get damage. And
it's pretty narrow there too.
Right.
Yeah.
The only thing is, and again, I know parking is an issue, and you know, but from an environmental point of view, I mean, I've been by there, and it's a full parking lot in the summer, that, you know, currently. So it seems to me town ought to consider putting permanent fencing there.
It's certainly something I can raise with Amber when I catch up with her after this, or we can have it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Pete?
Yeah, I fully agree with John. And I think one of the things I see all around town and private property and such are just big rocks that, you know, they're put in 3 feet from the edge of the roadway, and you just can't park there because you got this big old rock in the way. Thanks.
Any other comment from the commissioner?
I guess I will. My impression was that this was going to be planted so that you end up having bushes so that people will not park there. Is that not correct?
That's the intention, yes. I mean, we can't guarantee that a car won't drive over it at some point, but the goal is to have temporary fencing around it long enough for it to get large enough that it's enough to prohibit vehicles from getting in there.
And you're talking about having it with some kind of, I don't know what you said, like I'm imagining a police tape or something that you're talking about, some kind of tape that's going to be taped off. But I mean, can't you do that for like a couple of years rather than a single year? Because
I think if that was to be like, maybe we could set a threshold of how large the plantings need to be as a condition of this permit. We could have that as like, that's when you can take the construction fencing down.
Okay.
The only thought I had, Bill, following Peters, is, rock is kind of a natural barrier. It's there. It's going to protect that zone.
Yeah.
It ain't going to go away. So
Rocks would be a good idea, I think.
yeah.
So maybe we want to condition it with some kind of stone of such size.
Yeah, that it could work after you're talking to her, work it out with the staff, but that certainly would be my recommendation at least.
Right. Luis?
Well, I was about to speak in favor of a fence or rocks, because what happens is that somebody kind of pushes the issue in terms of parking.
Yeah.
And it kind of eats away, it starts at one end and it creeps and creeps and creeps, and pretty soon all the plants are gone. So I really think you need protection, and people can pull up and park along the road, the upper road there. That's what I think most people do when space is gone down, on the road down to the beach. So I would be in favor of the fence and rocks for sure.
Thanks, Luis. Any other questions for
Tom, Jeffrey.
Jeff?
Yeah, I don't even think you need temporary fence, guys. If you go with boulders in the plan, you won't need the gaudy look of the temporary fence.
Right.
And no one's going to drive over those boulders.
Good point, Jeff. It's a good point.
It's true. I don't think you need really a big boulder stuff. I mean, if you have placed some, good sized rocks along that line, no car is going to go over there. Couple of comments. I just want to mention the drainage report looks good. And what kind of construction schedule are you thinking about? I know you mentioned about 90% design. So you still have to go through another remaining 10% and then go out for bid. Is it going to happen this year or next year?
The goal is for construction in the fall. We're technically at about 90%. We're realistically at about 99%. We wanted to make sure that we had this meeting first so we can incorporate any comments that the board had. So this would be going out to bid sometime this summer to get constructed in the fall, and that also falls within the requirements of the grant.
Right. The other question I have, I think it's, you have a proposed stormwater O&M plan. Is the town going to follow that O&M plan?
Yes, that is a requirement of the grant. And it was developed, this whole design was developed based on the lessons learned from the existing system that's out there of what works, what doesn't work. And so we've worked hand in hand with DPW to make sure that we're setting this up in a way that it can be maintained for longevity.
Okay, thank you. Channel 18, any public comment on this one?
Seeing none.
None?
I have a comment if I.
Who's this?
This is Phil Odense from 15 Old Shore Road.
Okay.
The guy who's going to inherit a bunch of boulders.
Okay.
So just, I don't know that this bears on the plans, but as an observer of the hill, I don't see a lot of parking, like a car being left there for hours. What I do see is when people haul their boats, they pull over to the side and then, tie it down and stuff like that. I think that's most of the quote unquote parking. I do wonder how far up the hill the plan goes with plantings, because my worry is that people will still feel the desire to do that and they'll just do it further up the hill under my patio. So if I think if it could be extended a fair way up the hill. Yeah.
This is about the extent of the project, and I realize this is about the worst aerial image ever printed. But
yeah, I get it. So I guess I will voice the concern that they're just going to do it further up the hill, and we'll have the same problem, but just a little further from the water. Maybe that's less of a problem because it's further from the water.
One thing though, you can mention it to the DPW as a consideration since they are going to revise the plan to some degree. So whether that would be a consideration from them.
Yeah, and I'll pass the message along as well.
Yeah.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay. Any other, Channel 18, any other public comment on this one?
Yes, I'm Leo Schmidt. I'm Phil's neighbor, and I'm at number 31 right there on the southern eastern end. I just have a question where the this is for Greg. You know, where there's you're going right by the entrance to our driveway. We do have some cobblestones that are there to provide traction in colder weather, et cetera, for the delivery trucks, et cetera. But will those be replaced in the event they get uprooted? And I think I saw that they would, but can you answer that?
Yes, we have the provision in there that anything that's damaged to put these in the apron would be restored in place in kind. Okay,
and also just what would you anticipate the length of or duration of the project? How long would that take?
It's going to be up to the contractor, obviously, but from what we're looking at, I wouldn't expect it to be really more than a week. Okay. You know, it's a pretty small system. The excavation is not going to take long because it's good sand here, obviously. So it really shouldn't be anything that's drawn out.
And if I could echo some of the other comments, I think boulders are not a bad idea. I use one myself down there. So anyway, I'll go with that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Channel 18, any more public comment on this one?
Seeing none.
None. Could I have a motion to approve this project with the condition that the town should follow with the proposed stormwater dam plan? And if they decided to allow some boulder along that parking area, they can submit the revised plan to reflect that change.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Koshulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tangney. Aye. That's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Gregory. Good luck.
Thank you.
We have one continuance. James N. Cody, trustee, Centerville Qualified Personal Residence Trust, to replace existing timber bulkhead and stone revetment with new vinyl bulkhead at 90 Short Beach Road, Centerville, as shown on the Assessors Map 206, Parcel 123. And this is a continuance from April the 29th. The quorum is everyone except John. We were waiting for the DMF comment letter, and we've received that this afternoon. I'm going to read those comments, and then John can try to answer those one, whether there is a appropriate or not. Number one is the time of the year restrictions should be observed on all in water activities to protect the sensitive life stage of winter flounder and this diatomaceous species. No in-water silk-producing activities such as the bulkhead construction or revetment removal should take place from January 15 to May 31st of any year. Second, the existing slope stone revetment is sited within the intertidal area and provide habitat for shores zone fishes, invertebrates, and shellfish. The proposed reconstructions would remove this habitat. DMF encouraged the proponent to seek alternative approach that would allow the stones to remain in place. Third, the construction activities, including staging of the construction material and equipment, as well as the equipment transits to and from the construction site, should avoid intertidal habitats to the greatest extent if practical. As much work as possible should be conducted from the upland portion of the project site to minimize impacts and avoid the impactions of sediments and in-mapped shellfish habitat. Any work in the intertidal zones should be limited to low tide, such that work is conducted in the dry. Any activities requiring a barge should be restricted to 2 hours before and after the high tide to prevent barge grounding in mapped shellfish habitat. Fuel spills from the refilling of the construction equipment will adversely impact sensitive resource area. Impacts to resource area can be avoided by prohibiting all land-based equipment from being refilled on site. If equipment is refilling on site, adequate containment and cleanup material should be required to minimize the impacts. Hey, John.
Hello, John O'Day.
Hi, John. With those comments, what do you think about the second one in terms of the existing slope stone revetment? They're asking the proponent to seek alternative approach that avoid the stone to allow the stone to remain in place. What do you think?
I think the commission even pondered that question at our initial meeting. And I think it was our position that at this site, that this is not a significant shellfish area. I'm not aware of there being any shellfish in our existing stone wall. I don't think we had any comments of concern from our local natural resources. And so, our position the last time was that in this instance, kind of given our conditions of habitat and also thinking of energy and storm environments, that the less impact of being able to do this as a bulkhead kind of outweighed any potential theoretical loss of habitat. But
okay,
that's where we were. I don't know if this changes the commission's opinions.
Thank you, John. Bill?
Yeah, I think I was the one who raised the idea of having a vertical bulkhead versus the stone with the crevices in a slope. And it's not, I don't think, from my perspective as a retired fisheries biologist, it's less about shellfish and more about just habitat for fish. And I was speculating, I don't know, theorizing last time. I said, this is, putting bulkheads everywhere in the long term as sea level rises is going to be a real problem. And yet then I said, but it becomes like a cumulative effect. Right. We end up losing a little bit of habitat here, whatever. But then when we ever deal with cumulative impacts, it's hard to nail that down. And we just continue to do it. And you end up losing habitat for young of year fish, small fish and whatnot. And so I was like, I'm going, I don't know what to do. And we just sort of moved on from there. But I think that here the marine fisheries, I think, are essentially bringing up the same point.
Thanks, Bill. Louise?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was thinking about what Bill had to say, and I think it goes beyond fish, other little critters that are climbing around in those crevices and so forth and so on. And it's an interesting point.
Yeah, birds.
I don't know what to do with it, but, it's certainly something to think about.
Pete?
Yeah, Mr. O'Day, quick question here. Can you drive pilings, or I'm sorry, drive sheeting on the landward side of the existing rock? That would solve everybody's issue here. I don't know if that such a thing is possible. That's not my forte. Is that something?
I'm looking at something else at the same time. I don't know that it would be possible to drive vinyl
right
landward of that and not knowing exactly what the conditions are underneath it.
Okay. Is there, if you had metal sheeting, something like that, I don't know.
So I guess what I'm maybe I just want to make sure is clear is that our plan is to not put this bulkhead all the way out at the seaward most extent of the existing stone.
Right.
So actually, 2.5 feet, give or take, that's currently stone that's going back to natural bottom conditions. So
Okay.
another way of looking at this is we're actually restoring 2.5.
Right.
John, do you mind share the plan so that we can see that?
It will take me 1 minute to bring it up. I wasn't copied on any of the Division of Marine Fisheries stuff, so I didn't even know if we were talking tonight.
Okay. So actually, John, again, I'm trying to find a solution here. The rock in this region is providing habitat which is in short supply. Would such a thing be possible as just putting back after you have the sheeting some of the rock just on the outside of the sheeting so that you have some, as we talk about all the time on land, some kind of vertical complexity rather than a straight flat wall? That would provide habitat for fish and invertebrates to be hiding. As Dr. Hearn mentions, a flat, smooth wall is brutal for predation against small invertebrates and small fish. They have nowhere to hide. But possibly the placement of some of the rock back would be a solution of still providing that habitat and yet allowing the vinyl sheeting be placed. Because I understand vinyl sheeting can't be driven. I understand that now.
I think that probably would be possible. So the plan is up now.
Right.
And so as you can see kind of on the plan view part and on the section part, we were coming inside somewhat of the stone. But yes, I don't see why it wouldn't be possible to replace some of that stone.
Yeah, and on the water side.
That 2.5 feet.
In terms of the vinyl sheeting.
We could put for this to be replace, reset. I don't know what the word would be, but I think we could do that.
So Bill, you're the expert on this. What do you think about that idea?
Well, I think it's all good. I was thinking this little diagram suggests that there is some slope before you hit that vertical wall, and putting additional stone waterways is a good one. But then also moving that thing back, even if you moved it landward of a foot, you'd be gaining something as well. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I think you just want to avoid having that vertical wall. I just imagine the ocean going up over time, and then all of our shoreline is going to be this vertical wall, and that's just going to be death to a lot of species. I mean, think of birds. I mean, shorebirds or anything that just is all along the waterfront. Anyway, I like your idea, Pete. I'm glad that they're not literally. Well, I don't know where the water level is going to be on that particular diagram, but
right now, if you look at the mean low water,
There's,
minus 1.9, there is at least maybe a foot. Maybe.
oh, there's mean low water. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
About half tide.
Right.
If it went back where it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I'm not that. Seeing that makes me feel a little better. I mean, I don't. If you could put in some additional stone there, I think it would be good. If it's not too much of a effort for you. Okay. I think everyone understands the problem, and I think over time, this Conservation Commission, whether I live long enough, we're going to have to be dealing with this issue over time.
Yeah. John, if you move that vinyl back a foot, would that help, or would it be a problem?
I don't think it would hurt us.
Okay.
It helps you.
Okay. Let me, Channel 18, any public comment on this one?
Seeing none.
None. Let me try this and see how it goes.
The time of year, do we usually do that on wall replacements?
Well, it's only saying that if you're doing in the water activity, so if you do it on the low tide and trying to pound that in, you're not really in that. So the time of the year restriction does not really affect you. That's how I'm reading it. Right. Ed, am I right?
It's for any in-water activity that causes any siltation. So if you're not causing siltation, then I think you would be correct. If you're creating any kind of siltation during the construction, then the time of year restriction would have to be met.
Right.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did we receive the commission? Did we all receive a copy of this?
It was late this afternoon. It sent it out.
Okay. So it was sent out to us. I never saw it.
Yep.
Yes, I received
No,
it at
it's not.
4:10 this afternoon. I received
4:10.
it. Yep. So I sent it out when I received it.
Wonderful. I didn't see it.
Watching it the whole day.
Did it provide opportunity for silt curtains if needed, or did it just say you can't work?
It did not say that it's just to observe in water activity. So if you're not in the water and low tide, you pound the vinyl sheet in on, like as you mentioned, or you moving 1 foot inward on the landward side, your chance of working in the water is minimal.
I think that's pretty good. I guess I'm also just sort of thinking of the.
Just so you understand too, also the letter specifically says the first condition is no in-water silt producing activities.
Right.
And unfortunately, they say such as bulkhead construction or revetment removal should take place from January 15th to May 31st of any year. That's how the letter reads.
You want to think about it, John? Or
I wish they had sent it to us 2 weeks ago, so we could have. So they're saying no bulkhead work in the water anymore.
Only between January 15th to May 31st. What are you thinking about the construction period for you?
Tom, may I ask you a question? Do we have to accept that recommendation in the order of conditions?
You don't, when we're doing piers and things, we pick and choose what we want to listen to.
No, we don't have to follow every single word by word.
Well, then perhaps we could modify it if that would make everybody happy. I don't know. I'm not part of this, but just a thought.
Yeah, but John, what is your proposed construction period?
When contractors are available is beyond my control. I mean, I'm assuming that every project on the water wants to start on November 1st, and they're not all going to be done by January 1st.
You could start, John, in September.
If you could get somebody.
Yeah.
You just can't be in the springtime with the winter flounder and the anadromous fish. It gives you the whole summer too.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure the neighbors would love this project going on all summer.
Hey, Tom, if I could make a suggestion, John didn't even know this was on tonight. Why don't we continue this to the next meeting and give him time to figure this out?
Yeah, I think.
I mean, at the end of the day, I don't get a say. I'm asking for the commissions to, we're trying to be agreeable to some of their recommendations, which were consistent with the commissions. It's really just and I think we're agreeing on the 80–90% of this project being working out of the water anyway. We're just down to this last little stretch, and I would ask that, if the commission thinks they have any discretion, this is, conditionate of we try to avoid that time of year, but if you can't, a silk curtain could be deployed.
I think given the agent here agreement to pulling it back 1 foot, getting some boulders on the land on the seaward side of this for increased habitat. There's a lot of give to us. I'm perfectly fine with allowing a silk fence if needed and not having that time of year restriction. Bill, what do you think?
I second that.
Okay. So let me try this. Could I have a motion? Could I have a motion to close the public hearing and authorize the staff to issue the order conditions with the following conditions? Number one, allowing the bulkhead, the final bulkhead to move landward by 1 foot, and then we need to revise plan, and then add some stone in front of the vinyl bulkhead. And secondly, it's the let's see.
Silk curtain is necessary or whatever.
Yeah, if you need to use the silk curtain, you can to install it to minimize any in water activity, so that is minimize any silk producing activity. The other condition seems to be fine.
No barge, no.
Yeah, no barge, no restrict the high. Any activity requiring a barge should be restricted for 2 hours. That's a regular conditions. Fill, spill, that's as regular conditions. I think that's about it.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
He's not.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I got lost. Foster.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. That's all 6 of us that were eligible. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 easy certificates of compliance. John and Judy Clancy, SE3-5784, Perry S. Wentworth, SE3-5990. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tangney, that's unanimous.
Thank you. And we have 1 set of minutes, April the 1st, and this is tabled from last hearing on April the 29th. Do you have a chance to look at that?
Yes.
Yep.
So I make a motion to accept the minutes from April 1st, 2025.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you. And for the last items for that discussion, I just want to mention a couple of things. I typically have an agenda meeting on Thursday before the hearing date. And we kind of reviewing all the application and raise any questions from that review to the applicant, so that the applicant has a chance to kind of trying to address our questions and concern. I think this exercise has been working well in the past. And if the commissioner has a chance to look at the plans or did the site visit, have some concern or questions regarding to any applications, you should bring it up to Ed or myself, so that we can try to notify the applicants and get some answers during the hearing and resolve the issues. When they come into the LDA, I think everyone knows that we have a 21 days rule. By the time the application is submitted and by the time we issue the final determinations, that we have to be done in 21 days. We cannot put any condition in as far as the approval goes, because there is no enforcement in terms of the conditions under the LDA. If we decided that a certain project is not going to be approved under the LDA, we don't need to go into the discussions of how they would be submitted in the NOI phase or in the next phase. That is the applicant's responsibility, how to satisfy that requirements. So that's just to minimize all that discussions that we had. The other things too, on the guidelines, take a look at the guideline. I know there's a few pages in there. You may not have a chance to go through that, but if you want to take a look at it and see if there's any questions or you want to make some changes in terms of the markup, send it to Kim or Ed so that we can take a look and see whether we need to schedule another discussion session on those markups to approve the guideline for filing the Wetland Protection Act. That's all I have. Do you guys want to say anything regarding to this one?
I would.
Go ahead, Bill.
Last week it was kind of a difficult situation where somebody had an RDA, and it had to do with expanding hardscape in the 50 to 100 zone. And we ended up with a vote that essentially shut it down. And that was kind of an awkward situation. And it basically had to do with our guideline that what we're talking about here basically says that if there's an addition that is up to 400 square feet in the 50 to 100, it's an RDA. No need to mitigate. And if you take 400 times 3, which is 1,200 square feet, you end up having potentially 1,200 square feet of plantings that could be in the 0 to 50. Many of the projects that we see, I would say most of the projects that we see that we make site visits to, the 0 to 50 is fairly heavily impacted, often by lawn that goes clear right down to the edge of the water or right to the very edge of a steep bank. And that's the way things have been done here in Barnstable. And I know that we typically try to mitigate and put in plantings. And so when you end up having that kind of situation, we have a lot of the 0 to 50 that is basically a lawn. And you have something that says, well, if it's a 50 to 100 construction up to 400 feet, you really are giving away a lot of opportunity for plantings. And that's what happened last week. And so you've asked that we submit our comments to you, and I will do that. But I will tell you, as I was doing this, I'm like thinking, okay, 400. What if it was 100? If we said, let's change it to 100. And then I thought, well, 100 times 3, because it's in the 50 to 100, you're talking 300 square feet of plantings. That's 30 feet, 10 feet wide, and we often go 6 feet wide, but say 10 feet wide and 30 feet long. That's a lot of mitigation, even at 100 feet. And so where I was thinking, let's not be so tough on. So my inclination, and I guess I'm giving you maybe some of my comments verbally, but it's a tough thing to deal with. I don't think we should be giving away the opportunity to try to build back and restore the 0 to 50 buffer, which we seemed in regulations to try to protect, and yet then we're not trying to restore. So anyway, so I just had to say that to one and all.
Well, take a look at the guideline stuff and mark it up if there's anything that
and I will
make a change. we have to we can take a look at it. I mean, at the time when the staff creating this guideline, it's a guideline. At the time, if you look at all the numbers, it's either a 200 or 400. You know, so it's not something that's set in stone. Okay, it's just a guideline stuff. So, but the staff just want to get your input as far as, is there any other thing that we want to change in this guideline? That's why we generate this.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I just ask a quick question? I guess it's of Ed or the staff. How was 400 square feet determined? Like, how was that determined to be the place where that cutoff was?
I don't know that there was any set formula or anything else. I think that was just a tacit agreement between the commissioners at the time. As this has been a living document, it's changed at least 4 times in the last 20 years. It has been changed and edited, changed, added to, taken away, that sort of thing. So I think that's just been the 200 and 400 have always been the two guiding square footages. And again, that was based on, I mean, I'm assuming, because I wasn't around
You
here for that,
inherited
but
this, right?
that was, that would have been what the then sitting commissioners felt was appropriate under their review. So I think that's the best I can give you.
Okay, thank you.
There is no set guideline or formula like Ed says to determine that 200 or 400.
Yeah, Tom, can I ask a question?
Just 1 minute, John.
Go ahead, Jeff. Let Jeff go, Tom.
Sorry.
Jeff?
Yeah, I know I'm going to get an education on this, and that's okay. So I know exactly what Bill was talking about, the application last week. And Bill and Pete were somewhat in the negative as that matter broke. And as that particular conversation continued, you shifted your position. But the education I'm looking for here is on that RDA. What would have happened if the applicant, who was trying to put maximum pressure on the board, letting us know that his contractor had to be ready to roll in 30 days, which I hate. I hate when that happens, when they exert pressure of that caliber. But what if he was to, and I know it was an RDA, but what if he was just to come and said, hey, I'm going to, even though I'm not required to do so, do 200, 400, 600, I don't care what the number is, okay? But what if he was just to add onto that RDA and stipulate that he would do mitigation on that first phase project, okay? And that's what I'm trying to ask you as to what would have happened in that particular case if he had done an immediate sweetener and added and said that he would add that to the plan with staff's permission.
Well, the thing though, under the LDA, that kind of condition, there is no enforcement to it. We cannot put it under the LDA.
No, I'm not suggesting it was an enforcement.
Right.
I'm not suggesting it's just a free-willing add.
We have on many, many occasions, Jeff, in the past said, that's great, we will accept it, submit a letter to the staff so that it's part of the record. And at least it's in the record. Is it enforceable as a condition? No, but it's in the record as a voluntary commitment by the applicant.
Well,
so whatever that's worth.
Yeah. Right. Well, thank you. Well,
but that's how we've handled it in the past.
Well, John, I know you weren't present last week.
No, I'm sorry I missed it, guys.
No, that's okay. But I got to tell you, I mean, if that had been presented in the fashion you just mentioned, John, that and there was a second phase with a high-end builder. I'm familiar with who the building company was. So, and it was in the high rent district. It wasn't a port. It was Hyannisport, very close to the water. where I'm going is that would have changed my vote. I would have been with Bill.
And we've done that
I would have been
several
with Bill.
times. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about Bill, how Bill would feel about it, but I could tell you from experience, we have accepted that on multiple occasions in the past as a voluntary, and we ask them, for the record, please submit a letter to the staff with that commitment.
If I might, isn't there an issue in which somehow in the record of the property, mitigation area is identified so that in subsequent, I'm seeing Ed shaking his head. I was thinking that there was some kind
Not under an RDA.
Well, that's the point I'm making. Yeah, exactly. In other words, if we had done that with an RDA, you would not be able to put it into the record, meaning this property has mitigation. You can no longer ever use this as mitigation, and it's subject to being mowed, chopped, or what have you, because it's not bona fide mitigation that has been adopted under an NOI, right, John?
Yes, Bill, that's absolutely correct. If it's an NOI condition, when the certificate of compliance is issued, that is filed in the registry of deeds. So
Right.
Theoretically, if I sell my land or if somebody goes back and looks at it, there it is in the registry of deeds as part of the property. So there is a difference between a voluntary commitment under an RDA
Right.
and an NOI condition. There is clearly an enforceable difference there. But if you go back historically, because I've been part of these conversations for a few years, a lot of it was we were finding people hesitant to even file, on a de minimis project, a small project or whatever, they wouldn't even file. And we said, okay, where there is a small de minimis thing like that, we're going to let them submit, not an NOI, which costs a lot of money, requiring engineering plans, et cetera. Let them file the RDA. So that's part of the reason, from a very practical point of view, a realistic point of view, where the guidelines were set with some quite exception or some leniency, or whatever the word is, Bill. That's the thinking. That was the reason. I have to admit, in my experience, when you get the staff, and it goes back to Rob Gatewood, and it goes to Darcy, and now to our chief honcho over here, Ed, when the staff makes a recommendation like this, they deal with these things so much, so frequently, that I would give very great deference to what Ed and the staff was recommending. I really would. I mean, that's just my experience with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of respect for our staff. They deal with these things so much. They deal with it on a very practical, day-to-day basis with somebody facing them across the desk. Kim knows probably better than anybody. She's the one that answers the door. So I give great deference to them. That doesn't mean if a specific, last week when I wasn't part of it, if a specific issue comes up, a specific case, yeah, we have the authority as a commission to say positive term. We've never given up that authority.
Right. We never. In the past, we have several RDA that we make a determination that is a positive determination, depending on the amount of the activity that they want to do under that permitting. So,
John,
it's kind of a practical. Historically, Bill, it was kind of it's kind of a practical analysis that we did. Heavy reliance, again, you didn't know Rob Gatewood, who was very experienced, and Darcy, who was experienced, and Ed was a conservation commissioner himself, who was equally experienced. So I tend to lean very heavily towards supporting our staff and whenever they recommend in these things, without giving up the power to always review it. That's where I come from.
But we ended up in a kind of an embarrassing situation last week because
which I was not part of. Thank God.
Ed basically, in effect, told the applicant that, yeah, this is an RDA, and here was essentially a large part of the 0 to 50 that was a lawn, and there could have been 550 square feet of mitigation plantings. And if you do the math, if it's 400, you're talking 1,200 square feet. And when you end up seeing so many properties, I mean, you go around Waquacket, for example. I mean, it's like everyone takes a lawn straight down to the water's edge, and that's not healthy for the lake. And so
I agree, and that's why I think commission always retains the right to review it. But in terms of an operating guideline, you know, when they're dealing, and believe me, so much experience with people saying, hey, you know what, this is hardly doing anything. I'm not even going to file. And we wanted to make this a very practical kind of an application. And as you know, an RDA is so much less expensive and less work than an NOI, which provided that opportunity. Again, we've never given up the authority to overrule it. That's again, just my view, Bill, that's all.
Okay.
Well, again, just, you know, take a look at the guideline, whether there's anything that you want to change, mark it up, and then we, you know, send us to Kim and Ed, and we'll take a look at it and then see whether we can have another discussions to finalize that guideline for the staff. I think the staff need that as guidance.
You know, can I just respond to?
Go ahead,
Bill. I'm going to tell you, it's like I applied the guidelines that the commission gave me, and given the conditions of that site, there was no reason why you shouldn't have done that as an RDA, and that's what it is. I mean, that was my opinion. We had 3 other commissioners that looked at it originally and agreed with me, and the fact remains is that you had a house that was completely out of jurisdiction. They were adding 180 square feet of additional hardscape at 90 feet away from a wetland resource area. It was over a relatively flat and sloping lawn. Would I have liked to have seen mitigation? Yeah, I would. But they didn't offer it, and frankly, I don't think you needed it for that. The fact remains also is that you did raise the question. In fact, Pete asked whether or not they could put 550 square feet off in a corner next to the resource area. And again, you as a commission turned that down. So, you know, that's all I have to say. I'm not going to argue the case anymore, but.
no, let's just let the commissioner mark up any comment on the guidelines and then submit it, and then we'll schedule it to another whether a workshop or discussion on that one. So,
Tom, if, for example, a commissioner says, well, I'm okay with them, do you want that in writing, or just just changes that you want sent to you?
well, I mean, if there's no change, they send us an email, just say, you know, no comment.
Okay, all right, okay. Either way.
So if we don't receive anything, that as the assumption is that there is no comment from this commission. So our next hearing is at 3:00 on May 13th. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Tangney, aye. Sampu,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Kashulik,
Aye.
Hearn,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Abadili.
Aye.
That's unanimous, Mr. Chair. It's 7:33.
Good night.